There is a specific moment that kills more promotion opportunities than anything else, and it doesn't happen in your performance review. It happens in the meeting. When someone asks you a question, you know the answer, you start talking, and somewhere in the middle of your explanation, you lose the room. Not because you were wrong, not because you didn't know your stuff, but because by the time you got to your point, they already had moved on. This video is about why that keeps happening and the one shift that fixes it. If you're 5 to 10 years into your career, excellent at what you do and still being overlooked, this is for you. Now, I don't write in code and I don't build software, but I do know how human beings process information, and I know exactly why your non-technical bosses aren't understanding your updates. Here's what's actually happening when you over-explain. And I want to be clear, this isn't about knowing enough. The people I see over-explain the most are usually the ones who know the most. The problem isn't knowledge. The problem is that you are married to the details. Being married to the details and believing your audience needs to know what you know. You know everything about this topic. The history, the nuance, the edge cases, the reasoning, and somewhere in your mind, you believe that your audience needs all of that before they can understand your point. They don't. In fact, most of the time, they don't even want it. Here's the truth about what your audience actually wants. They want the action and the result. That's it. Not the full context, not the complete backstory, not every consideration you weighed. They only care about the decision and what it means for them. When you're afraid someone won't understand, you add more context, more background, more explanation, more qualifiers. And every sentence you add, thinking it's helping them understand, is actually making it harder for them to hear the main point. Here's the truth about how people process information. The more you give them, the less they retain. We can only hold so much at once. When someone fills a room with information, the brain starts filtering, and it doesn't always filter for what you most needed them to hear. Now, here's where this connects directly to your promotion. At senior levels, decision makers evaluate you on your ability to synthesize. Can you take something complex and make it simple? That is the skill. Not knowing everything, but knowing what matters and being able to say it clearly. Think about the last app you used that overwhelmed you with too many options the moment you opened it. What did you do? You closed it. Your audience does the same thing when you over-explain. Good communication is good UX for the listener. You are designing an experience, not dumping data. The goal is not completeness. The goal is clarity. So now that we understand why this keeps happening, let me give you 3 specific tools that will change how your ideas land starting in your next meeting. The first tool is called the one idea rule. Before you open your mouth in any high-stakes situation, identify one main point. Not a list, not everything that you know. One thing. The single most important idea you want this person to walk away with. Most people start talking before they've identified their point. And so the talking becomes the process of finding the point, which means the audience is watching you search for something they're waiting to receive. When you know your one thing before you speak, you don't search, you deliver. The second tool is called end waiting. Your most important idea comes last because the last thing people hear is what they remember. Okay, so like this, because of the timeline pressures and the resource constraints and the feedback from the last sprint, I think we should probably consider delaying the launch. Try this. Given the timeline, the resources, and the sprint feedback, we should delay the launch. Same information, completely different impact. Say your most important sentence last. And here's what makes end waiting even more powerful. After you land your point, keep it mysterious. What I mean by that is this. Answer only what they need to know. Leave space and let them ask clarifying questions. The person who gives a complete answer before being asked for one loses the room. The person who gives a precise answer and stops makes the room lean in. When you stop talking, you create space for them to ask. And the question they ask tells you exactly what they needed to understand. That's when the real communication happens. Not when you're talking, but when they're asking. The third tool is the pause. A deliberate 2 to 3 second pause before you answer a question is not confusion. It's confidence. It tells the room, I am taking this seriously enough to think before I respond. The person who is comfortable with silence is almost always the person the room defers to. Now, let me show you how to put these 3 tools together into something you can practice starting today. And if you didn't notice, I had just practiced the pause technique in real time. Okay, so before your next meeting, write down one thing you want people to walk away knowing from you. Okay, one sentence. If you can't write it in one sentence, you haven't found it yet. When you're in the room and someone asks you a question, pause first. Identify your one point and put it at the end. Then stop. Let the silence work. Let them ask the follow-up. That follow-up question is not a problem. It's proof they're engaged. And here's a practice exercise for this week. Take the last update you sent to your manager or your team and rewrite it in 3 sentences. Whatever survives the cut is what actually mattered. Everything else was just noise. The goal is not to say less. The goal is to make what you say impossible to miss. So you got the 1 idea rule, in waiting, keep it mysterious, the pause. Just start there. On June 4th, I'm running a free live training where I walk you through the complete framework. All 3 steps applied to your specific situation. It's free, it's live on Zoom, and the link is in the description. Subscribe because next week we're going deep on something harder to hear. Why calling yourself an introvert might be the thing that's actually killing your promotion chances. That one is going to hit. I'll see you soon.